So let's jump right into it. Shirtless Matt is back. Yeah, on my hair. Spider-Man: A Brand New Day. In this trailer for the new sequel of Peter Parker, it finally addresses a longtime problem many folks have had with the enjoyable Tom Holland Spider-Man. Whether Disney and Sony are intentionally being smart here is up to anyone's guess until the film actually comes out. By the looks of the trailer, I don't think they are, but just like the tone of it, right? Whether white folks realize it or not, because there was a lot of white folks, right, who were talking about Spider-Man. That's like their go-to character. Like that's the bigger population here in the States. Whether white folks realize, so that was like the really loud opinion, but whether white folks realize it or not, and most didn't, the criticism of how Disney slash MCU wrote Tom Holland's Spider-Man since like 2016 or 2017 was like the first one came out, Homecoming, was partially genuinely woke, class conscious, right? As far back as the film Spider-Man: Homecoming in 2017, folks saw the parental guidance of Tony Stark as like a good thing. This is cool. Like he's a father figure, right? Like both of them are techie, both of them are intelligent with science. It makes sense that Tony Stark would see something in this young man of Peter Parker. But they also saw it as bad at the same time. Because it filled Peter Parker's life with fame and new toys and tech, but more importantly than that, Stark provided mentorship and opportunities for this young man's future. Like Miles Morales and Gwen from the animated Spider-Verse films, Tom Holland's Spider-Man is supposed to not only reference superheroes, but he's also supposed to reference Americans' youth. Believe me, we're going to talk about the elephant in the room at the end of this. Uh, yeah, he's supposed to represent America's youth, like senior in high school to college student age range, roughly, within Marvel Media in relationship, like all stories, with the real world, right? And that's the problem. America's youth generations, like younger millennials, zillennials, and Gen Z Zoomers, are fucked. Since the 2010s to today in 2026, within America and even first world developed nations, America isn't really one of those, youth and young adults don't have access to the systems of opportunity that their parents or grandparents had access to when they were young, even though it's by magic in this, in the MCU. In Spider-Man Brand New Day, Tom Holland's Spider-Man is depressed, burying himself in whatever work that he is able to find, in this case, being a superhero. He is single. He's poor. He's financially poor. He's struggling when it comes to higher education, and he's barely able to even afford to live by himself. I'm going to try to keep this brief. There's other things I want to talk about, but I won't talk about them here. Anyway, the actual reality of being a young adult in America's post trickle down Reagan economics, post 2008 financial crash slash bailout, and post everything is for the tax evading rich class slash shareholder value right wing Trump economics USA. For youth and young adults in America, college is not worth it anymore. Those who do manage to go to college leave with debt or some form of debt. U.S. companies are no longer interested in hiring U.S. college grads. I literally showed a video of them saying that, but knowing that for years. I've been knowing that for about 10 years, but I showed you guys the video of an older, wealthy white man who's involved in like finance and stock who literally said that when he was like around the Trump White House a couple months back. Not even hiding it. No mask is on right now. They're just blatantly telling it to you. Um, and thus entry level jobs and internships are almost gone. Right, the few remaining entry level jobs require 3 years of professional experience. Thus, those are not entry level jobs. Experience, the including the right connections. Come on, what? When privatized corporate welfare bros can simply outsource poverty wage labor, use AI, contribute to greedflation, right? Exploit contract workers who require full time benefits, not even full time workers being given workers' rights or benefits to live life, little to no benefits or workers' rights. And they force lower pay on older generations of senior workers, etc. So young folks end up being underemployed and in debt for nothing if they've gone through college. Even if a young person manages to get a job, which will most likely not be in the college major that they chose, managing not to fall into despair while being rejected by hundreds to thousands of real-world jobs and free data mining labor traps of ghost job applications. If they manage to get through all that, get some type of job, right, that's not in their major, that job statistically won't pay enough money for said young adult to buy a home. And in some cases, many cases, it's not even going to provide them enough of an income to be able to afford rent without being almost broke every time rent is due, / having roommates for most of their life. It's become common for 20-somethings to not be able to move out of their parents' home at all. Half of all homeless people work full-time, yet must travel from hotel to hotel to sleep for the night or sleep in their car if they're able to even afford a car in this car-centric dystopia. The MAGA administration wrongfully fired 300,000 qualified black women from the public government sector working force. More than half of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. 7 million Americans plus are currently jobless. The average first-time home buyer in the U.S. in 2025, for the first time ever in American history, is 40. The average U.S. home buyer, period, is 59. The same country where its entire presidential cabinetry, including the president, is made up of a bunch of people who objectively are not qualified for their jobs. But they only got their jobs because they're white, they're men, and if they're white women, they're loyal to the white men, they're loyal to Donald Trump, they're loyal to the Heritage Foundation's Project 2026 at this point, right? This entire country's history of pointing the finger at POC people, but especially black American women and black American men, and saying that you don't belong, or I have the right to be suspicious that you don't belong, that you didn't earn your spot here, right? But we gave reparations and we gave money to enslavers after the end of the Civil War, right? And we have this administration just full of unqualified white folks. Yeah. Into the Spider-Verse, or whatever, Spider-Man, whatever. And I could go on, but not just from stats and real life experiences from my life as an example. The real world problem of the system intentionally abandoning its young people to exploit out more profits for the few is another reason why fans of Spider-Man didn't like the addition of Tony Stark. I discussed this more in my Iron Man essay, but MAGA and the reality of America itself proved that boomers and rich, class, older, white men, Tony Stark archetypes, what he represents, they don't really they don't really exist like him, right? Those rich class older white men do not care about the next generation, not even of really their own little white kids. If they don't care about white youth in America anymore, they double, triple, quadrillion times don't care about Black American, African American, and Native American youth. They don't really care. They don't care. They don't care about the next generation of workers and dreamers. Perhaps, unlike generations of whites before boomers, again, elephant in the room, they were racist and misogynistic as fuck. They would lynch black people and make postcards out of them, but whatever. And most certainly, unlike Afro-American older generations who loved and cared about everybody, including their own. What is it? I think Malcolm X and Martin Luther King, I think they were part of they weren't boomers. Were they part of what was it called? The enlightened generation, I think. Something like that. Before the generation before the boomers. The reason you can't afford to live isn't because American companies don't have enough money. Remember, they were making gangbusters during the pandemic, right? They were making shit ton, thousands of dollars, hundreds of millions, many of them tens of billions of dollars, right? And they were still fucking with American workers, laying them off. People couldn't find, ordinary citizens couldn't find labor, right? It's because the rich class that own the companies want more and more money, right? And messing with workers is a way that they can make work. Messing with the job market and all the ways that we've talked about in previous videos is a way they're able to scrape off more money than they've already made. They've already made enough money where there should be no job crisis. The unemployment rate should not be this high. The underemployment rate has no business being this high. It's all artificial. The American companies have already made enough money. All this is happening. You cannot afford to live because they want even more, not because they don't have enough. Spider-Man, in this trailer at least, gets the emotional and spiritual tone of what it means to be a young person for millions in the United States right now. And obviously the elephant in the room is that even when America was prosperous, those prosperous years that both leftists, liberals uh, and right wingers kind of want. They want the economic prosperity of the 1940s and the 50s, right? The elephant in the room is that even when that was around, if you were a woman, if you were African American, if you were Native American, it wasn't for you. It wasn't for you. It wasn't for you. We survived. We thrived in spite of it, getting bombed. If in the case of African Americans, but the system that Black American women and men built, and even to have the prosperity that white folks and younger white folks enjoyed in the 1940s and 50s, we weren't able to take a piece out of that, even though we made the whole thing. But that's all I wanted to say about the trailer. The trailer is giving, just the trailer alone is just giving those vibes of what it feels like to be, what it is to be a young person in this country, in this third world country with a first world skin on it. It's giving that, even though the movie is not going to explore that at all. I don't believe any of the crises that are in the real world are going to be referenced in this new Spider-Man movie. They've kind of referenced some of it a little bit. Like they referenced the housing crisis. Like literally, a character talks about using advanced technology to address the housing crisis in Ant-Man and the Wasp, where they introduced Kang. Didn't hate that movie, but I understand why people do. It had major problems. So the MCU throughout the years does every once in a while reference real world issues, even though they've never really been interested in being fully woke and fully real and even just like fully realistic and exploring realistically their more fantastical elements, right? And that's a problem. That's not a compliment, right? The right wing has always tried to use the MCU as like a Trojan's horse in order to push more white supremacist and misogynistic narratives. But the irony is that the MCU isn't woke, and it would be good for everybody if it was genuinely woke. Instead, at best, like you can describe the politics of the MCU as like a centrist at times, which is really just closeted right wing, and at best of times like liberal, which is really again like establishment Dem, diet right wing. It's still the MCU in its references to the real world and themes and allegory and such is more often than not deeply, deeply, and generally American conservative. It's American establishment. And obviously, the other elephant in the room is that taking it outside of the MCU's lack of world building into the real world, Tom Holland and Zendaya are both extremely successful Gen Zs, right? They are not just successful Gen Zs; they are as successful as you can get as a Gen Z person, and that's just and again, obviously, celebrity is being a celebrity is very, very different, right? It is inherently exclusionary. It is even more so now. That's what's changed. The distance between the haves and the have-nots is just massive now in a way that it hasn't been before. Ordinary people, used to enjoy celebrities a lot more, right? They used to like seeing rich and wealthy people and celebrities because the distance between the rich and everyone else wasn't so big. But now it is, right? It's not the reality of the average white youth generation, millennial, younger millennials, millennial, or Gen Z, to be invested in. Their hard work and their labor is not invested in like it was in previous generations. So the distance is bigger. So again, apart from the obviously the elephant in the room of being a woman or being black, if you were a white youth person in the day, you didn't mind seeing celebrities because the distance wasn't so big. You could enjoy seeing celebrities because American institutions systemically invested in white men when they got out of college and invested in them in terms of internships and entry level jobs. But that's just not the case that much anymore. So there's that distance of my generation's millennials, younger millennials, and Gen Z. Do you really want to go to the movie theaters and see Zendaya and Tom Holland? Do you really want to see Gen Zs who have been invested in, unlike for the first time ever, the majority of the majority of the young population? I don't know. Obviously, I am very, very happy for Zendaya and Tom Holland. They deserve the fruits of their labor. It's just again them being invested in, and they're very humble. They've talked about it before, where they've talked about they know they didn't have to be invested in. This didn't have to work out, but it did, and it's just an interesting dynamic now because again, that's just not the reality for young people in America anymore. Anyway, I'll see you guys later. Be safe. Enjoy the weather. Peace out. Thanks for watching.